So let me ask you, at what point do you think the president thinks, because every Saturday and Sunday he's in every rooftop of a car, in every market and everywhere else, where is the space for sitting down and appreciating sector per sector? Where are we in policy and practice? Where is the joint? How can we improve it? That is not happening.
Well, thank you, Janet Ouko, for joining us to crunch down on this particular quite controversial issue on the CBC conversation. And recently we've just moved to the CBE, the Competency-Based Education, which was previously curriculum. And amidst that particular transition, which has not been perfectly explained by the ministry, experts are weighing in on the issue, parents are asking what's going on, also students are partially affected. And so while all this is happening, I mean, where do we stand? And I think I'll start with the question, is there any significance in transitioning from CBC to CBE?
Thank you so much for having me for this conversation. And one of the things that I always fault the ministry for not doing is civic education for the masses, because right now the ministry ought to have clarified that there isn't any difference or there isn't any significant change. It's just a matter of branding, because curriculum is just one aspect of education, because we have other aspects including assessment, you know. So calling it competency-based education is encompassing, because it is not only the curriculum bit that is affected by the changes that have been caused through the CBE reforms, including how we do the assessments, including how teacher training and how teacher recruitment is done, has also been affected by the whole reform around CBC. So really calling it CBC, competency-based curriculum, is just looking at one component. So it is only, I think technically the right term would be competency-based education, so that then you're bringing in all the facets, including assessment, including teacher training, and all those.
Okay, so if I'm getting you correctly, is the CBE is actually now a good change? It's now a good...
It's an encompassing term, so that we are doing competency-based education. Curriculum is just one aspect. Even assessments, the way assessments are now done, you've seen CPSEA and all that, it is part of the reforms that were brought in by the CBC. So we can no longer call it the CBC, we can now call it the competency-based education, to bring in all the facets of education.
But while we're still at that, we know the very prevalent challenges, including capitation, including proper understanding on the learning pathways. You've mentioned training. I mean, is the transition as expected? Is it good? Is it, I mean, who's losing and who's winning at this?
Yeah, the problem is that right now, being the Minister for Education is a very unstrategic time. Why? Because the mood in the nation is not helping matters, and we are not seeing a lot of leadership coming from the top level. And that is why an honest and innocent thing such as changing from CBC to CBE attracts a lot of backlash. Why? Because we have seen people changing university funding model and calling it a new funding model, and really when the motive for the change and so on is just not explained, is not clear. You have seen the change from NHIF to SHIF and to SHA, you know, so that people are beginning to question, what is all this branding, you know, sort of changing the names. Does it mean that the delivery has changed? And you cannot tell Kenyans that the changing a name has had any good effect. We have seen what change from NHIF to SHI and SHA has done to the Kenyans. So Kenyans are skeptical. And right now, the implementation of CBC, I'm really disturbed myself. I'm really disturbed, because we are struggling with having conversations with the government that wants us to discuss capitation grants. You really want us to struggle with you as government to haggle that should you send, should you not? Should you send the entire 22,000? You have actually reduced it to 15,000, you know. And looking at the whole concept of the competency-based curriculum, any president right now who is coming in to cause so many changes within the education sector is not serving anybody's purpose. We really desire that the education sector is allowed some bits of stability, because we are already going through reforms. Like you rightly said, right now children are transiting to grade 9. There are so many changes that are expected, including changing to the various pathways. Already thinking processes have not been concluded as such. Parents are not even aware as we speak what will happen to their children. So right now, what we were expecting of the government is to probably take cue from where Uhuru Kenyatta left it. Uhuru Kenyatta came in and found a lot of work that Moi Kibaki had done. Moi Kibaki is actually called the father of free education in Kenya. And when Uhuru Kenyatta came in, much as there were challenges, because there were challenges, but he tried to sustain. He didn't alter so much. In fact, what Uhuru Kenyatta did, when he found the capitation grant for secondary school at 14,000, he added it to 22,000, because he's the one who introduced free day secondary education. So we can see a trend, like we are growing. But what does William do? He comes in and disrupts everything. That is the big problem that we're having with him. He comes in and disrupts everything. And when you ask him, a gentleman, why? What has informed you? He has no explanation. He will just be having so many words to say nothing. But the idea is there is somebody who is defunding education. Someone does not want to continue funding education. And what you cannot do right now, and I think we have put it to him in no uncertain terms, that we do not want to have discussions with anybody about funding education. It is in the Constitution. We cannot start pleading. We cannot start interrogating the so-called Kenya Kwanza experts. Had you put this in your manifesto? This is not an issue of Kenya Kwanza manifesto. Education of children of Kenya is captured under Article 53 of the Constitution of this country. So the only thing we're telling William, can you implement the Constitution of Kenya? Stop thinking. Don't even think. Sack your advisors. No. The education sector has been moving smoothly. Do not bring the interruptions that we have seen you bring in other sectors. No, this can be so much injustice. We have seen what he did in the higher education sector. Right now, as we speak, there are so many graduates who have dropped out of school, if you could be aware, because a lot of them are not able to, the banding and all that, you are put in band 4, and probably that does not capture your family's economic abilities, and so the amount of money that you are supposed to pay in as a household is too much for you, and you drop out of school. I want to tell you that it is a long time ago since we started hearing Harambees for university education. You can confirm that. Harambees had died completely at university level. Why are we seeing Harambees coming back? Tells you something is absolutely wrong. Why are we crossing the road and seeing so many children crossing the road? They've been sent away for this, for that. It is because William is not sending capitation grant. Apart from reducing it from the 22,000 that Uhuru used to send, he reduced it to 15,000, and he will not even have fidelity to send that 15,000. We are having so many head teachers right now having blood pressure. Why? Because a school has to run, but you cannot send learners home because you will give the government a bad name. Why are we giving head teachers so much hard time? Don't you think there's a bigger boulder here for especially parents, schools and experts like you? Because now we see there's a huge situation of speaking from different parts of the mouth from the government. 2 months ago, the PS said mathematics will be, just for example, mathematics will be optional in junior school. Then the other day, when now the transition from CBC to CBE came about, we see CS Migo saying that now mathematics is, so the policy changes and we see people, there's a huge misnomer because still people from the same ministry, but they're not on the same page. I mean, does that now pose as a bigger challenge? In as much as, yes, you're calling for these reforms, you're saying the president should do ABCD on capitation and everything, but I mean, how does that pose for you? I have refused to sit in any media house and discuss the ministers and the PSs. They're just not there. They don't know what to do. There is only one man sitting somewhere pulling all the strings.
Okay.
And the sooner we know and we address that person, the better for all of us. I know some of the cabinet secretaries that are there. They're experts in their own rights. Like the cabinet secretary for education, he's a lawyer. That is not a stupid person. So he's not one person who will be, who we can say will not understand policy issues, for example. He will understand, but his hands are tied. There is one person who must say how much is supposed to be sent to schools. And until that person says money will not be sent to schools. And I can give you another example. Today in the papers today, there is a headline, mini headline saying that SHA now is sending away patients. They will not be paying until you pay your annual premiums. You saw that as well. This is the same government that a few days ago launched the lipa mdogo thing. So lipa mdogo, one day they show up with braggadocio and everything else, telling us you can lipa mdogo. The other time, the ground, when you go there, the practitioners are telling you, no, we have instructions that you have to pay the full premium for the full annual premium for you to be attended to. So let me ask you, where is the problem? The problem is that we are having an uncoordinated government. A government that has no time for thinking. There is no time for thinking. At what point do you think the president thinks? Because every Saturday and Sunday he's in every rooftop of a car, in every market and everywhere else. Where is the space for sitting down and appreciating sector per sector? Where are we in policy and practice? Where is the joint? How can we improve it? That is not happening because nothing can move. And I have another example as well to show you how nothing moves until the president says. When the university student took to the streets and they opposed the new funding model, he very quickly crafted a task force, a workforce, a very large thing that had 129 members, unprecedented in this country. We've never seen such a task force. And he crafted it to do what? To silence the noises, like to manage people like you guys. There's something that is being done, So I was a member of that team. And we did our work, and I know what we did in that team, and we gave recommendations. But those recommendations have not been seen anywhere, and they have not been spoken about, including when we pushed the Minister for Education during these COOPs opening. They are now applying for courses, and we asked, why are you telling learners to apply for courses, and you have not attached the cost for those courses? Yet we sat as a task force and we revised the courses because we said, no, it is not true that it is going to cost 720,000 to do dental surgery in Moi University. It is theft. Even in Makerere, the same course is costing 480,000. In our own private universities around here, it cannot even touch 500,000. Where are we coming from to charge parents 720,000? And we said, no, this is fraud. It has to be revised. And we revised downwards. And I can tell you today, we revised it to 447. But because the president has not said, he has no time first to look for the report. He does not have the humility to allow those he has given jobs to use their capacities and exert themselves to support the sector. He will not let them do that. He will still insist on having the final word, yet he's too busy on every rooftop of a car, addressing everything and doing every empowerment and opening even bus stops. Who does that? Why are we running a country like this? And you see, the tragedy is, it is our children who end up suffering. When I see a learner dropping out of school because of a policy decision that has not been made, delaying these things is affecting so many children. I know what he's likely to do. Right now, people have complained about capitation. This is what he will do, the typical politician that he is. Towards 2026, 2027, he will take back capitation to where it was. And tell people, si nilisema capitation nitaongeza, nimeongeza. Boss, what happens for the years that you had held that money? Do you care to find out how you affected the quality of education when you held that money? And you held it because you are who? You held it because why? It is our tax. This is our money. And we are saying, please, can you have the decency to serve a country as if you are doing it on behalf of others? And one other thing is, by the time you elect your leaders, it is not that you stop thinking. No, we come in this thing with our brains as well. We only delegated to you, a majority, so that then you can be able to make a few decisions on our behalf and execute and govern the country. But we have a situation where our government is prioritizing political maneuvering. other than governance. We are not being governed in this country. The only thing we are seeing is political maneuvering. Coming as Tom here, robbing Peter to pay Paul. That we are doing this here because like now you're reducing the budget for education. We have lost a whooping 4.3 billion Kenya shillings. The school feeding program has lost 600 million as we speak right now. But guess what? There is money for empowerment. Let me ask you, what empowerment is more than a well-resourced school, than a well-trained teacher, and a child with hope? What other empowerment is more than that? But you go around buying portion meals, buying shaving machines, and it is not okay. And that is not how we have decided as a country that we want to be managed. It is not that way. And the more citizens of this country agree that the most important thing that we have here is the constitution. If somebody is not able to govern us as per our constitution, he has no business calling himself the president of our country.
The stakeholder engagement that you have clearly indicated that is very poorly received from that particular angle. And you sitting in this particular board, you calling out for this particular reforms, are we looking at a prolonged poor quality state of education, or now do we have to, as you've projected, approaching the next election cycle is now when things will be revised? Is it that now at that particular expense, now the quality of education, especially for now grade 9 students and grade 10 who are even at a bigger precipice, does it now pose as a weaker state of education?
It is really bad, and that's why we have decided to speak, and we are speaking very, very, very hard, and we are calling on everybody, every Kenyan of goodwill who has ever supported education, and we are saying that this is the time that we really need to speak. We've made so many gains, so we cannot just sit by and watch one man take away those gains, and they are not even caring to justify why. I wish we were all saying that there is debt distress, and so we are seeing everybody behaving as though we are having debt distress. But that is not the body language we are seeing. You're not going to be repairing State House with the monies that we are seeing you using to repair State House and telling us that there is no money for school feeding. No. What are do we have common priorities, or some people are sitting somewhere, they have their own priorities, and then coming to managers with a narrative of debt distress and all that. And then again, the problem with education, and that's why sometimes you see some of us shouting alone. It takes you to really have engaged in the sector to know the damage that goes on. For example, when the resources are delayed, you see, it is not like in the medicine field where a medical emergency results to death, or so people can actually physically real time appreciate the danger or the damage. When a child misses school for 3 weeks because they have been sent away for fees, that damage for me is what really aches me, because they will deteriorate in their grade. What does that mean to them? The quality of their life and the amount or even the investment the household has made on that child. When a child misses out, for example, on KCSE, and they don't register, and so they have to wait for probably next year. By the time next year comes, they're probably into drugs, because you understand this thing. If they're a girl, probably they've gotten pregnant, they've gotten married off. For me, that damage is even deeper than death would, because death of dreams, and you don't have anywhere to mourn publicly, and you have nowhere to show a grave for it, it's really sad. And so when I see how casual William is treating this thing, because it is not, education is not sort of an emergency for anybody, not like what we've said in the health sector, where you will have death and it will really be devastating, not like the emergency we are having right now, that a certain police officer decides that they are so intolerant and so they are low unto themselves, you can collect someone's child and kill them, and you see the death of one child, the uproar it has brought nationally. Now you can imagine that thousands of children are out of school as we speak today, but there is no anger. Why? Because they are in every woman's house. Your child is inside the house, and they're not hurting anybody, but the damage we are doing to the lives of those children, and even the psychological torture that those women or those parents of those children are going through is so much if anybody were to quantify it. And so and then again, really we cannot begin these conversations all over again as a nation. There are conversations we refuse to have with the Williams government. We are funding education not because it was in your manifesto. We are funding education not because you want. We are funding education not because it is convenient. We are funding education because that is what we have agreed as a nation. Under Article 43 of the Constitution, it is a socio-economic right. Under Article 53 of the Constitution, it is a right of every child. And even internationally, it is one of the declared human rights. So why are we starting to discuss afresh? Where does he want us? I saw the other day CS Buddy discussing that they are going to be funding exams in a hall in Kibra, and we are saying no, matters of funding education are not to be discussed on rooftops or in political forums. No, this is a sacred right for the children. We know its place, and this government will fund education. It is not a conversation we want to be called in a hall to discuss afresh how we want to fund education. We are not going to discuss education vis-a-vis empowerment. You know, some these empowerment things that they are doing that are not measurable, that nobody knows the outcome, nobody knows how impactful, nobody understands their sustainability, nobody understands these people who are empowered. Where is the research that showed that they really needed this kind of empowerment in the first place? It is so haphazard and so politically motivated. You are not going to remove money from the non-sustainable, and non over time ways of doing things. And you remember when William came in, the first thing that he did, when he was reducing the money for capitation, he increased monies for bursaries for MPs. So you want to bribe members of parliament and remove money from systemic funding for education. I don't understand you. I really don't understand you, because we are saying no, we cannot tokenize education. There is no child that deserves queuing to anybody to access their tax money. Why don't you just well-resourced schools like you find your predecessor presidents doing, so that children will just report to school and learning will just take place? You remove money from school and you take it to some gods so that we will all go kneel there for the sake of your votes. It is not acceptable, and that is not how we are going to manage education moving forward.
The state has also tried to defend itself by saying we have tried to employ more teachers, you know, to fully implement this particular transition. Recently, around 76,000 teachers have been enrolled to be trained to this particular, I think it's for junior schools. And they've also been trying to defend themselves and trying to say, in as much as we are slowly transitioning to this particular thing, at least we are trying to make gains here and there. Is this current crop of secondary teachers ready to take up the job for senior school students under the CBE mode of education? Are they well equipped as of now, since the training started?
Apparently, issues teacher management have gone fairly well.
Okay.
And we can attribute that to the fact that TSC is an independent commission established by the Constitution, and so it runs fairly independently, and the systems are not so much prone to disruptions. When I say systems, I say that, for example, how the commission runs, it is run by independent people, independent of the politicians, you know, of the day. And that's why probably fairly, teacher recruitment, fine, we could say that the government, through the presidency, the executive, provided the budget. That is fair. But if you look at a few of the other things backdoor that do not have to probably involve the front phase of politicians, the teacher trainings and the workshops and everything have been going on fairly well. So that helps to point us at one thing, that we can sit here and say that there are things that can run in this country only when they are probably dissociated from the mess, and the mess comes from one place and we know the place. A lot of politicians are not known to touch something and it thrives. You only need to look at their ABC for you to understand who politicians are. by the time it is done with one cycle, it is either dismantled, that is how politicians like running institutions. But if we let institutions run, and I'm really worried because the term of Nancy Macharia has run to an end. So I do not know that this particular government and the behavior we have seen, both in appointments and in interference with institutions. We can only pray that the CEO that will come is able to maintain things, because I can tell you for a fact, Nancy Macharia really tried. There are times when we would complain so much about teacher absenteeism, if you remember. It's about 7-8 years back. And there is a time when symbols of drunkenness used to be, especially primary school teachers in the village, somewhere in a market at 10, speaking a lot of English, and you're supposed to be in school. But we do not see those scenes anymore. For the last about 7 years, there is a lot of work that has gone to professionalize the teachers, and we are really proud about what we have now as a teacher and a teaching profession. But then, having said that, is that that does not mean that because now you have been employing teachers, that is the only function that you want to say that it is running, and so you raid the resources that we had already ring-fenced. In the battles that we had already won, you raid the capitation grant, you reduce it, you threaten us that you're not going to be paying examination fees, and I think that it is wrong for the president to only, every time he stands up, he tells us that I have employed teachers. You have employed teachers, but the focus for us is on the children. How are children going to go? Where are the instructional materials? Where are the textbooks? Where are the chalks? Where are the desks? Because that is the whole transaction of in a learning situation. And what we are saying, we embrace any new changes that are coming, but we are not letting go of what we had won. In terms of capitation grants, we are not discussing. In terms of examinations funding, because I will tell you, even if we think about examinations, tell me why a grade 6 child needs an examination result. They don't need it. It is the state that needs that result, and it is the state that should pay for it. Even if that were not the case, for example, the charges that are paid by that are charged by NEC, it's about 800 shillings. Many children will not afford that. I can bet you, if tomorrow teachers of any school in Nairobi here, even say Moi Primary School or Jehovah Jireh or Njiro Primary School, any school, if you want half of the class not to show up tomorrow, ask them to come with 100 shillings. Okay. They will not come, because parents don't have that amount of money. Worse still, if a parent has 2 or 3 children in that particular school, and it is not new, levies world over are the biggest barriers to education. The biggest barriers. It is not even girl-child pregnancy. It is not female genital mutilation. It is not. It is not even food. No, levies are the biggest barriers to education in the world, and that is why the world declared that education must be publicly funded, and we must fight and remove all levies. Any levy, mtoto akienda shule anaidishwa 30 shillings, investigate. It is 30 shillings for what? And every time we investigated these levies, we found that these levies were not coming to improve the learning process in the school. I can tell, even when I took over as a CEC in Education County, for you to join a government nursery school, you were being charged 18,000, 20,000 for you to come in. And when you ask Mwalimu, show me where that you have 100 children, you have collected 20,000 from each, that's give or take 2 million shillings. Show me 2 million in this school. He will not show you the 2 million in the school. So levies are very controversial. Today, if there is a parent, as I'm talking right now, if there is a parent who has a child at home, let them know that they're committing an offense. That child is supposed to be in school, and the chief is mandated by the Basic Education Act to know where that child is, to arrest that parent and parade them in a court of law to explain what a child is doing at home. Imagine, that is how serious we have come. So for us to see one man wanting to rubbish all those gains that we have made, it is not going to go without a fight.
You've cited the instances where you've done some financial tracking and you've realized the monies collected do not end up to the to the goal intended. Yes. And so, has any action been taken on this particular, what I would easily call graft cases, and maybe even if you can mention some?
Let me tell you why I feel very uncomfortable with where William has taken us back to. We were doing very well. because now we were zeroing into discussing how can we improve accountability in schools. And there were very high level conversations that says as below. The big problem why even today, if you ask the Minister for Education for one audit report for a school, aren't we seeing audit reports backing the decisions that are being made? Because it's a gray area. Why? Because teachers are not employees of the Minister for Education. Teachers are not employees of the CS Education. Teachers are employees of Nancy Macharia, the Teacher Service Commission. So even if the cabinet secretary, who is the owner of the money, you know, the owner of the money finds that a head teacher has misappropriated money, he has to write to Nancy Macharia of TSC and find out, explain, there is this and this problem. Can you take action? So that then she can, if, you know, so there are those issues. And we had gotten to levels where we were saying, can we have agencies, an agency letter generated by the Ministry of Education, so that then if there are two aspects of managing a school, there is managing the resources and there is managing the curriculum. The managing curriculum bit, that is a human resource bit that the TSC is in charge of. But managing the money bit has to be done from the Ministry of Education. So that if you are a head teacher and the Ministry of Education has denied you their agency letter, that means that you are found with improprieties in management of resources. Therefore, you cannot be able to manage the money bit. So you cannot be a head teacher. You are a very good manager of the curriculum. We are not saying no. But you have a few issues with management of the resources. You know, that is where we were taking this. That is where the sector was. You know, we were going in, and even when we had stopped discussing access, because we were doing very well. Access levels were hitting 98%, even 100%. We are now going back to discussing out of school children. Why are we discussing? We are supposed to now be discussing quality of education. And that is why the conversation of CBC came in. Because we were like, yeah, the classes are full. We really have to change the modalities, how teaching and learning is done in school. We were now going to discuss the quality of education. But look at where we are drawn back to. We now have to find out why are children out of school. There is no money in schools. What do we do? It is really bad.
These misappropriation cases, are there any that you're currently following up on?
I know very well that we have raised a few issues with some schools, and when we raise the issues, the good thing is a few of the head teachers are I don't want to use the word gracious, because they know that it is a malpractice. The moment you flag a school for charging illegal levies, they will either deny or even pull back completely and demand that no, let the children come back to school, there was a misunderstanding. So nobody wants to admit that they are charging because they know it is an irregularity. And when you think about the era for Fred Matiang'i, if you think about the era for George Magoha, we were doing well, because I can bet you there is a time that we were making steps towards the right direction. But right now, I honestly don't know what to say about where we are with monitoring some of these performance indicators. I don't know, because we've been taken aback. You know, we are now discussing money. There is no money in schools. A head teacher receiving 87 shillings to support a child for an entire year. What do you call that? How would you have a conversation with that head teacher? Yet they cannot send any child home because they will give the government a bad name. But honestly, we have to be very honest. We need a government that is honest with us. We need a government that will tell us we are not funding education. The admissions we have seen with the cabinet secretary, he admitted that we don't have money for education. Badi has admitted we don't have money for education. We are waiting for that man that we signed a contract with, the man who swore to defend the constitution of this country, to come and tell us there is no money for education, but there is money for doing empowerment across the country. For
the parents who are not quite conversant with the transition, and by transition I mean the new learning pathways. There's a STEM, social sciences and arts. So many parents are still trying to find their way around this particular aspect. I mean, with a complaint being on a rise on a daily, how would you help them to understand better on how to, to understand these particular pathways and how to even know where to advise, their children to enroll in? It
would be very hard to package a message right now that really guides, parents across the board.
Okay.
But I would really urge the parents to go to school.
Okay.
You know, to go to school and have these conversations, because there is no one size fits them all. Your child is unique, and your child is for a certain pathway, and there is how assessments are being done in school by the teachers, you know. And also sometimes we have told parents that some of parents complain, why doesn't the teacher write on the diary about homework? But you know, sometimes the teacher will give the homework verbally, so that he can also use that to assess. How are you and the child communicating? Are you communicating? Is the child able to tell you, Mami tulipewa homework here na hii na hii? You know, because if you're not communicating with your child at home, it's very hard even for you to be able to know whether what they want to be or what they can be. A lot of us parents judge parents depending on what the society wants. Mtoto wa rafiki yangu ni engineer.
Yes.
Our elder cousin, who is our role model, is this. So I also want my child to be this. But that is very different, maybe, from your child's giftings and from how he is probably manifesting in school, and even his own admissions in terms of his aspirations. So it's very healthy if parents would be a little more proactive, and they go to school and just have these conversations with the class teachers, and they are also supported to understand what is this process looking like, because I do not I doubt that the teachers will not know how this is done and how to help the parents. Yeah.